Orchida Mancharova, Simona Kielbasheva, Christiana Tynarova, Nelia Kondeva.
What triggered the drastic change of women's role in the 20s?
As a result of the First World War, the role of women changed dramatically. To begin with, there were hardly any women working before the First World War. They only took care of their children and the household. However, during the war, large numbers of women were recruited into jobs vacated by men who had gone to fight. Women started working in areas that were formerly reserved only for men. For example, as railway guards and ticket collectors, buses and tram conductors, postal workers, police, firefighters, and as bank tellers and clerks. Some also worked heavy or precision machinery in engineering, like cart horses, on farms, and work in the civil service and factories. Especially after the war, women came to the conclusion that there had to be more to life than just looking after the house and the children.
Were women paid less than men?
Even though they did what in most cases was the same work as had been previously done by men, women were paid less, and that was not usual only then. Even now, in the 21st century, there is a gender pay gap. For instance, in most European countries, women's wages are around 16% less than men's. In 1918 was the first equal pay strike in the UK, when the women workers on London buses and trams went on strike to demand the same increase in pay as men. As a result, the unions received guarantees that where women had fully replaced skilled men, they would be paid the same as the men. But it was made clear that these changes were for the duration of the war only and would be reversed when the war ended and the soldiers came back.
Who were the suffragettes?
In 1903, the Women's Social and Political Union was founded by Emily Pankhurst and her daughters Crisbel and Sylvia. They wanted women to have the right to vote, and they were not prepared to wait. The union became better known as the suffragettes. Members of the suffragettes were prepared to use violence to get what they wanted. They burned down churches as the Church of England was against what they were doing. They vandalized Oxford Street, apparently breaking all the windows in this famous street. They chained themselves to Buckingham Palace as the royal family were seen to be against women having the right to vote. They hired out boats, sailed up the Thames, and shouted abuse through loud hailers at Parliament as it said. Others refused to pay their tax. Politicians were attacked as they went to work. Their homes were firebombed. Golf courses were vandalized. The most famous act associated with the suffragettes was at the June 1913 Derby, when Emily Wilding Davidson threw herself under the king's horse. She was killed, and the suffragettes had their first martyr. However, her actions probably did more harm than good to the cause, as she was a highly educated woman. Many men asked the simple question: if this is what an educated woman does, then what might a less educated woman do? How can they be possibly given the right to vote?
What was the public reaction?
Such violence led to mixed reactions. Of course, it gained publicity. Suffragettes was pleased that the cause was being brought to everyone's notice. The reaction of the public, however, was mixed. Some felt that the women were justified in going to such lengths. Many others believed that the violence was totally wrong as a means of gaining an object.
was the first step towards women's empowerment?
Partly as a result of the suffragette movement, and partly because of their services during the war, women were given the vote through the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution in 1920. The whole process lasted for more than 70 years and involved 3 generations. I think the very fact itself that women could devote themselves to a cause, no matter what it is, and persistently pursue it for so long that they were critical enough to themselves to desire intellectual, professional, and social advancement is indicative of their well-deserved right of equality. The 19th Amendment played a pivotal role in women's life, for it meant much more than ballot casting. It was the first step towards empowerment, not only of women as individuals, but of the whole community as well. Being enfranchised, women could cater for their own interests and enact policies to benefit them. Birth control, for example. More women were delaying marriage, graduating from higher education at higher rates, and entering into professional occupations. Other rights they gained included owning, inheriting, and transferring property, signing contracts, serving on jury, divorcing and remarrying, equal payment, and access to education.
When you mentioned empowerment of the whole community, what was it exactly that you meant?
Women emancipation would bridge the gender gap, and if no gender gap existed, there would be less tension and more balance between women and men. They would feel less nervous and pressurized when making decisions. And we all know that a happy woman means a happy home. Moreover, women possess skills and qualities that could be used in many professional spheres, especially economics and politics. Empowerment is not an end in itself, however, but a means to an end. It entails acquiring adequate knowledge and capacity, the confidence, the help, and the ideas to decide what is best for oneself and to act accordingly, fulfilling one's own potential.
What about the appearance transformation women underwent?
I would like to focus on women's appearance as an aspect of their empowerment. The reason why they resorted to it in the first place is because of their being regarded as second-class citizens, because of the inequality they were forced to face. It is only nature that they felt repressed and unacknowledged by others. They needed to attract attention and boost their confidence. Once they were noticed and appreciated by others, they could identify their own strengths and stand up for their rights. Hence the boyish look, the curveless dress, flat chest, and short haircut tend to suggest a look that commanded power and equality with men. I'll now try to use this flaptastic transformation of mine as a reference to outline other major changes in women's appearance. We can see that the makeup is extremely dramatic and flamboyant. It includes cold eyeshadow for a more daring look, lips smaller than the natural outline and fashioned into a cupid's bow shape, generous amounts of mascara, rouge applied in circles rather than angular, creating a rounded face effect. Eyebrows were plucked for the first time and nails were painted in the so-called moon manicure style. You can also see a typical dress of that era. Sleeveless, with a dropped waistline, plunging neckline and back, fashioned from a sequined and flowery material. Other elements of the outfit could be stockings rolled above or just under the knee, long shoulder-length satin gloves, cloche or peekaboo hats, feathered headbands, long strands of pearls, fringed or lace accessories. Women wore their hair in a bob, and that was not only a fashion statement, but a political one as well, to suggest breaking free of constraints and to mark their progress.
Why did women's attitude towards reproduction change?
The freedom that women got in the 1920s made them question the trend of having babies and keeping the family going. The majority of women did not want to have children and wanted to create something to stop childbirth called birth control. The nurse Margaret Sanger began publishing articles on birth control and founded the National Birth Control League, which battled for birth control using scientific and intellectual fields and backed up with many women who also wanted birth control. Sanger opened the first birth control clinic in the United States, but the clinic was immediately shut down by the police and she was sentenced to jail. She deliberately broke the law by distributing The Woman Rebel, a newsletter containing a discussion of contraception. Throughout the 1920s, Sanger continued to advocate for the right of women to access birth control information and devices. The whole movement began with women wanting to have the freedom over their bodies, their sexuality, and their life choices. They wanted to live without becoming mothers, they wanted to enjoy life. Finally, the Supreme Court made distributions of contraception information of birth control legal.
What was the image of the 20s working woman?
There were more professional opportunities for women in the 1920s than there had been before. Among single women, there was a huge increase in employment during this era. Women work as teachers, social workers, nurses, and librarians. With the rise of corporate office, a number of other types of jobs open up. Typists, filing clerks, stenographers, and even some secretarial roles all become possibilities for an ambitious young woman. In an era with absolutely nothing in the way of massive data storage, entire floors of office buildings were filled with the sound of typewriters and filling drawers. The creative occupations offered the best hope for advancement. The department stores hired women in large numbers, and with skill and intelligence they could work their up to being designers or buyers. There were also chances in writing, dancing, acting, and in singing, those brutally competitive fields of the creative mind. This was the age of Martha Graham, Edna St. Vincent Millay, Dorothy Parker, and Clara Bow. On a smaller scale, it was increasingly common to find women creating and producing artistic and literary journals. So, by 1930, 10 million women were earning wages, but women still earned less than men.
Who were the main female role models of the period?
Nellie Ross was an American politician who gained fame in the 1920s when she was elected governor of Wyoming, becoming the first woman to hold such a position and remains the only woman to have served as governor of Wyoming. Ross was aware that as the first woman governor, she carried a special responsibility. She was careful not to do anything that would make people question whether women were able to hold such a post. She even received such attention when she traveled to Washington, D.C. to participate in a parade for President Calvin Coolidge. Her presence drew the loudest applause from spectators that day. Amelia Earhart was an American aviation pioneer and author. Earhart was the first female aviator to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She received the U.S. Distinguished Flying Cross for this record. She set many other records, wrote best-selling books about her flying experiences, and was instrumental in the formation of an organization for female pilots. Gertrude Ederle became a competitive swimmer in the early 1920s and quickly began to swim in the Olympic level, breaking women and men's records. After her success at the Olympics, she wanted to challenge herself to swim across the English Channel and became the first woman to ever swim across the channel with bad weather conditions 2 hours faster than the men's record. She was then nicknamed America's Best Girl and proved to men that women can perform as well as, if not better than men can achieve. After Gertrude, women swimmers became more common.
Roaring 20s.